Today you will see real moments of people who were acting like they needed help. But what they were actually caught doing will surprise you. This compilation not only reveals their shocking acts, but shows the aftermath of those encounters. Let's begin.
A pregnant woman begging for money on the street with a young boy drove away in a Mercedes.
Every weekend, a woman would go to a shopping plaza with her son and a cardboard sign. She was also expecting another baby, and passers-by often gave her money. But one day, a woman passing said that she could take her to a maternity center where she could get free of cost delivery facilities. But this woman refused that offer and ran towards a black Mercedes.
I felt bad. I mean, there's a pregnant lady with a little boy and is down on her luck. The dad comes out on the weekends and stands with them.
The woman was shocked to see this and asked her why she was doing this if she already had a good lifestyle. But the woman did not like this confrontation and got angry, but decided it was best to leave the area.
They were leaving and I noticed they went into a Mercedes Benz and I thought, wow.
Fake identity.
Now, these people stand at shopping malls with small children holding signs asking for money. We wanted to know, are they down and out or professional panhandlers?
At first sight, these people looked like a struggling family. You got a mom, a dad, and a couple of kids, even a baby. They used to stand outside busy shopping centers with handwritten signs that said things like lost job and need food. They used to do the same thing every day, which caught the attention of a traffic officer. And then one day he followed them and saw that they packed up, got into a clean rental SUV, and drove to another location to repeat the act. Turns out these weren't struggling parents. They were scamming people by traveling around towns collecting generous people's cash.
Stop panhandling in Santa Clarita Valley. We don't want you here. I'm tired of paying for your damn car note. Get out of here.
Crutch act.
We've been watching you the last few days, and you don't really need those crutches, do you?
Next, we have this woman who used to stand on 5th Avenue, New York, with a cup asking people for help while leaning on crutches. Shoppers used to feel bad for her, and some of them even helped her out because she looked like she needed it. But an investigative firm that reveals such scammers saw this woman and observed her for some days. One day, she was not at her spot, and a few minutes later, the investigator saw her getting on a bus in Queens. And this time, she did not have any limp or crutches. She was walking, chatting on her phone, and was caught shopping as well. So all this time, she was faking it and got exposed by this firm. Coin meter crew. This group of so-called homeless folks were blacklisted in scams, and one day a security camera caught them again at Cambridge. They were in a Romanian registered car that they parked in a residential street, and these people paid for a full day at the meter, then walked off towards the city center. The group split up near the shops so that they wouldn't cross paths while scamming people of their money, but didn't know that cops were right on their tails. One of them was walking with crutches to add a bit of flair to this act. They were last seen near their car, and then the clip ended right there. Now, we do not have any clue if they were caught, but the cops do have all the information. Blind mystery. Next is John Calabiano, who claimed he had lost his sight in a workplace incident and couldn't cook, drive, or even walk alone.
He could not drive. He couldn't cook for himself.
He applied for disability benefits and was seen being guided to hearings by his girlfriend, but he did not get any benefits because just days earlier, CCTV cameras caught him reading outside a store, moving around with ease. He was even driving a car. The case was resolved very fast as these recordings were given by the plaintiff. John had limited vision in one eye, but the other was just fine, and he was on track to collect over $1 million, but the camera just exposed his scheme. Hidden legs. In a busy area in China, a man was seen along the road dragging his body like he had no legs. He was wearing a cloth that he used to cover his lower body. People did help him out, but fate had plans to expose his scam. One day, a girl accidentally stepped on his cloth, and what people saw shocked them. He had fully functioning legs. This caused the man to jump up, gather his things, and then run as fast as he could. For someone who allegedly didn't have legs, he got out of there pretty quickly. The locals took some time to process what had just happened. Violin scam. A man was pretending to play the violin in a busy shopping area, but today was a bad day to be him. A music teacher heard him and gave money just to hear a different song. The man didn't respond or change the tune. And the music teacher started to become more and more suspicious of his tune, so asked him to play without the speaker. That got the musician to get slightly hostile. Eventually, the teacher called him out by accusing him of using a hidden speaker. The violinist did not say a word after this and just walked away in anger. Signal act. The number of beggars has grown fast, especially near signals, mosques, and markets in India. Many of them dress in a way that tugs at your emotions, but some of these scammers use crooked posture, sticks under arms, and facial expressions to play with people's emotions. Some even twist their legs or lean hard on crutches to look desperately helpless. But local reporters have shown how these people are often physically fine. They just know how to act. When you stop your car or walk by, they draw you in by pretending to be in dire need. And once they get your attention, the money usually follows. Sliding board trick. Back in 2016, a man spotted someone sliding around on a board, pretending to have no legs. At first, it seemed believable, but the man noticed how smoothly this person was doing everything. He was amazed, but also got kinda suspicious. So he stood nearby and watched. After a moment, the so-called beggar began pulling off his oversized pants. And there it was. His legs were tightly folded underneath, hidden the entire time. He had tucked them in just right to make it look like they weren't there. As soon as he saw he'd been caught, he pushed off with his hands and left the area, avoiding any confrontation. Sudden confrontation. A man dressed in a military uniform was standing by the roadside asking for help, but a real veteran walked by and immediately knew something was off. He confronted him, asked him to remove the uniform, then told him what he was doing wasn't right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cars started to slow down as these two got louder and louder. The veteran said, "You're misusing something people earn through service." He warned the man to stop this or else he would call the police on him.
I apologize. Take that, throw it in the garbage. I don't want you to wear it anymore.
The fake soldier knew nothing could be done as he was just caught, so he left the area. There are actual veterans who suffer every day, and now we have people like him trying to monetize their sacrifice. Hunting trap. This man used to go to work through the same route every day, and on his way, he used to see a beggar who couldn't walk. He always saw him crawling and asking for help, but something was nagging him, so he started observing him and saw that his hunch was right. This beggar did have legs and was faking everything, so the man confronted him and said, "The police know about you. They're on their way," which caused the beggar to panic. Without saying a word, he quickly stood up, pulled off the pants, and ran. Just like that, everything he pretended to be got exposed within seconds. Scammer caught. Some investigators in India were looking into street scams when they spotted a man begging with one arm tucked away. He claimed he had lost it, asking for help from everyone passing by, but they approached him and asked to see the arm. He refused, saying, "I don't have it." One of the team members lifted his shirt, and there it was. The arm was hidden the whole time. He had been tucking it away to make it look like it wasn't there. They didn't argue. They took him straight to the police and kept going, searching for more like him. Fake sleep. This happened in Bangladesh when some locals gathered around a beggar lying on his cloth with some money beside him. It looked like they were helping him as he was not able to walk. But in reality, they were telling him to stand up. Yep, because a day before, one of the shopkeepers saw him walking on his own legs. So they told him to stop pretending. And right after that, he quietly picked up the money, packed his things, and without saying a word, got up and left. Homeless woman.
What do you want?
You're begging money. Stop stealing people's money. Stop begging for money. You own a car.
In Richmond, a man was researching for people to help when he saw this woman who really needed it. She said she was homeless. He asked her how much she made in a day, but the woman tried to avoid him and told him to stop recording, and this led to the man's suspicion. He kept observing her for some days, and one day he finally saw her getting into a nice car. He confronted her head on. He successfully exposed her lies.
You're begging for money. Look at your car.
What do you want from me, you stupid? What do you want from me?
Officers' intuition. police officer was doing his duty when he saw a man sitting in a wheelchair near the signal. There was a woman behind him pushing the wheelchair. The cop decided to go help them out. But being a police officer, he noticed his legs looked okay, so he kindly asked them only to find out that they were lying. Then the officer asked the man to stand up. At first, he said he couldn't, but once the officer insisted, he stood up. The officer let them go and told them not to fake things like this because there are actual people who need actual help. Caught live.
Huh? Oh, go. Huh?
The upcoming incident happened in Pakistan and was caught on live TV. This man was dragging himself across the road, pretending he couldn't use his legs. People were passing by, feeling sad for him. But then a local stepped in. He looked around him and got suspicious. Then he tricked the man and told him to get up, saying the police were on their way. That's when the man finally stood up without any problem. It was caught on live television and also by nearby locals. He later admitted to his wrongdoing. Family trick. I must say, this one looked straight out of a movie. A man was caught on security camera dragging his body across the ground. Behind him were his wife and kids. It seemed serious until he reached a staircase. That's when he sat down, stretched his legs, and started walking on his own legs like nothing had happened. The camera caught everything. People who watched it online made jokes saying it looked like his shift was over. And now, thanks to the camera, everyone knows the truth. Cross-border scam. The following encounter is a moral dilemma. Hear me out. Every morning, this man walked through train stations while looking like he was handicapped. With leg supports and twisted postures, he made money daily. But there was a man who was his ultimate helper. He used to give him money every day. But one afternoon in a nearby park, he saw him walking just fine with no limp. The man felt betrayed and confronted him. Then the guy admitted by saying he didn't have a job and this was the only way to survive. He even showed the fake postures he used. It was all a setup designed for sympathy and spare change. But this one's tricky if what he is saying is true. Do you sympathize with him or would expose him? Comment below. Looks are deceiving. On a busy corner in Woodland Hills, a man named Larry stands with a simple sign: out of work, out of money, 80 years old. People hand him cash, thinking he's struggling to survive.
He's just always there, and he's older and he's sweet.
You look at him, you think, wow, he's just a very distinguished looking retired man.
But behind that look, Larry lives in a modest condo with his wife, owns 2 cars, and collects Social Security. Some of his neighbors say he's kind, but others feel misled. Larry says he's just trying to cover bills after a tough patch and medical issues. He's not pretending to be homeless, but the sign doesn't tell the full story either.
I was desperate. I just needed a way to make a little bit of money to make ends meet.
Fake crew.
Police have busted scammers who flew in from China to pose as the homeless, ripping off well-meaning Melburnians.
In Melbourne, 7 people flew all the way from China, not for travel or work, but for something else entirely. Each day, they spread out on city corners, pretending to be in desperate need. Locals, touched by what looked like real struggle, gave them money, but the police had been watching. These weren't people in trouble, they were working together, treating street begging like a planned business trip. Eventually, officers moved in and the group was caught. Turns out what seemed like a group of helpless strangers was actually a well-organized team running a scam right in the middle of the city.
The Salvos are hopeful this scam will make people more careful when it comes to supporting those doing it tough. They say if you want to help out, handing over cash isn't the way to do it.
Homeless liar.
Not familiar. I knew the fellow with the ulster on the corner. Why, where do you live?
Outside a betting shop in Liverpool, a man named James spotted another man he'd seen before, always sitting, always asking for help. But one day, he saw him walking on the streets casually, and this didn't feel right. James walked up and said, "Don't you live just around the corner?"
You have got a house around the corner, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm not homeless, no.
You're not homeless?
Everybody just assumes that.
Assumes you're homeless, but you are begging.
Yeah.
The man didn't even try to deny it. He just nodded and said, "Yeah, I'm not really homeless. People just assumed that." When James reminded him he'd told others a different story, the man shrugged and said, "Oh, did I? I lied." Then he added, "It's like a job. I call it professional begging." For him, it was just a way to earn. No guilt, no shame.
You did? I lied. You lied? You lied to get money? Yeah, I've got you, mate. I'm reporting you.
Put it on YouTube then.
I think I might do, mate. I think I might do.
Sign in Sedan.
Oh, look, you got money, you got money, you got money.
This man stood at the corner with a homeless, anything helps sign, and a woman used to see him every day. But after some days, she saw him drive away in a clean white car, so she followed him. Across streets, past blocks, and into a neighborhood, the man walked right into a house. When the woman asked him about it, he didn't deny anything. He said, "So what if I have a car and a place? I made the sign, I needed money." He wasn't happy to be questioned, but it showed that sometimes a cardboard sign hides a lot more than just need.
Dude, I made this sign that I earned money.
Sign.
I've asked you nicely to get off my porch.
Fake wound. For weeks, this man sat on the street with a child, asking for help. A bandage on the kid's arm made it look like he was struggling. People felt bad and helped him out by giving money, but one day, a few locals saw the child moving his arm and got suspicious. They gathered around and asked him to remove the bandage. At first, he refused, but after some pressure, he gave in, and the boy's arm was completely fine. It did not have a mark on it. The man grabbed the child and walked off, saying, "Now you've taken away my job." But really, all they took away was a lie. Another scammer. Another scammer was caught like the previous one. He had been sitting on the sidewalk, pretending one of his legs didn't work, but when cops came over and asked him to prove it, he pulled down the layers of pants, and it became clear he had tied his own leg up using strings and cloth to make it look bent and useless. Once they opened the knots, the leg dropped down completely fine. The cops didn't say much, they just removed the strings and took him in. Bandaged bluff. An older woman sat by the road, waving her hand as she asked people for help. Her hand was wrapped in a bandage, and she claimed she had a serious wound. But one day, a police officer stopped and asked to see it. She hesitated, but he removed the bandage himself. And just like that, the truth was out. There was nothing wrong. The woman looked down, embarrassed. The officer warned her, "Don't do this again, or next time there will be consequences." She nodded and slowly walked away. Blind beggar. In South Africa, back in 2017, a man sat on the roadside pretending to be blind. People gave him money, thinking he couldn't see, but then this man noticed something strange. He took the cash and placed it into his pocket without hesitation. The man who gave the money returned and tested him. He faked a quick kick, and the guy flinched perfectly on time. That was it. The act was over. When asked, the man admitted, "I'm doing this because I need money. I'll pretend if that's what gets me through." It was one of those moments that said more than words. Fraud guy. Police saw a beggar dressed as a woman sitting and collecting money, but something didn't sit right. They asked him a few questions, and when he struggled to answer, they asked him to stand. That's when they pulled back some of the clothing, and sure enough, it was a young boy under the disguise. When asked why he dressed this way, he said, "Because people give more to women." It was a short answer, but it said a lot about the tricks people turn to when they feel they've run out of other options. Two stories in one. At first, it looked like a boy with one arm was asking for help on the street. People gave him money, but then someone noticed his other arm was tucked under his shirt. The boy was pretending. That man followed him and later saw him buying shoes.
He's buying new shoes. Look at him.
The boy ran when he noticed he was being watched, but this story didn't end there. In the same clip, a woman with a baby asked tourists for rice, claiming it was for the child. But once she got it, she sold it instead. These stories show how some people fake struggles while others truly live them. Stick switch. A truck driver recorded something odd. It was a man struggling to walk with sticks, moving slowly by the roadside, but as the camera kept rolling, the man suddenly stood straight, folded the sticks, and walked like nothing was wrong. A few seconds later, he approached the driver asking for money and got it. It's one of those moments that makes you stop and think. How do you know who's really in need and who's just putting on a show? Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. PhD beggar.
Now from Jaipur, the tragic story of a retired school teacher, a Sanskrit scholar, and a double PhD, forced out of his home by a drug addict and abusive son who left him in the streets to beg.
In Jaipur, a retired Sanskrit teacher with 2 PhDs was found crawling on the streets. His leg issue made it hard to move, and his eyes looked tired. But what truly hurt was the reason. His own son, struggling with bad habits, had pushed him out of their home. For years, neighbors passed by without helping. Despite having a pension and property, this man was left to beg. It wasn't until officials got involved that he was taken to a care home. What's sad is, it took cameras and attention for someone to finally step in and help him. $4 lie.
The woman was standing here on this median in the entrance to Quail Springs Mall, holding a sign that says she was a 78-year-old widow and she needed money.
Daniel saw an old lady holding a sign on a busy street. She said she was 78, a widow, and needed help. Moved by her words, he gave her money every day, even skipping lunch once to help. But one day, he saw her behind a gas station, counting a stack of cash and getting into a car. She denied everything, but the video showed it clearly. He felt fooled and said, "Never again." It turns out only a small number of people begging are truly without shelter. That's why groups now suggest giving help cards instead of cash, because kindness shouldn't be taken for granted.
You asking for money in the middle of the street and you drive a 2013 car?
Shirt trick. In Delhi, a man stood at the signal with one arm hidden, looking helpless and asking for change. But someone nearby had seen the act before and started recording. They walked up and asked the man to show his arm, and the truth came out. His hidden arm was tucked under his shirt the whole time. He was pretending. Sometimes all it takes is one person paying close attention to stop these little scams from fooling more people. Sudden shift.
Nothing funny about this, right? But
At a traffic signal, a man stood pretending to be physically challenged, hoping for a few coins from passing drivers. But someone nearby kept their camera on. As soon as the signal turned green and cars moved on, the man casually got up and walked away. No limp, no struggle, nothing. His confident walk gave everything away. That short walk was enough to expose the truth and possibly a whole day's earnings made from pretending to need help.
look how you walk.
Double arm trick. Somewhere in Pakistan, a man stood in the middle of a crowded area pretending he had lost both arms. He wore a loose shirt and begged from passers-by who felt sorry for him, but someone nearby had doubts. They walked up, pulled up his shirt, and suddenly, both of his arms appeared, tucked under his clothes. The crowd's reaction flipped instantly from sympathy to disbelief. The man didn't say much. He just stood there with a half smile because he knew he had been exposed. People walked away shaking their heads. Bandage scam. In Srinagar, the Jammu and Kashmir police stopped a man and his wife who were asking for help on the street. His arm was wrapped in thick bandages and he looked like he was in grief, but something felt off. When an officer asked him to remove the bandage, the man hesitated but did it. And underneath, nothing. Not a scratch, just normal skin. The wife tried to talk the moment down, asking for forgiveness, and within seconds, both of them left. Corner scam.
Be aware of panhandlers looking for a quick buck. 2 on your side's Brittany Wise tells us about a scam.
It was a busy intersection in Baton Rouge, full of cars, lights, and people in a rush. Among the traffic stood a couple holding a sign asking for donations. They looked like they needed help until someone got close and they ran off, hiding something under their clothes. It turns out this wasn't the first time they'd done this. Locals have spotted a group going around with fake stories about a baby in need. The sign pulls on your heart, but it's just bait. Real charities in the area are speaking up, asking people to give wisely, not just emotionally.
So thankful for all the support we get here in the local community, and it's only through the good generosity of people that our work is possible. So when you see something that's not real, it sheds a negative light.
Fake disability. At first sight, he looked like having only one arm. He sat near the traffic, asking people for money with a sad expression. But then a traffic officer stopped and approached him. Calmly and without saying much, the officer lifted the man's shirt, and there it was. His missing arm wasn't missing at all. It was tucked inside, completely fine. The truth was out in the open now, and the officer warned everyone nearby not to fall for such tricks. It was a clear reminder to stay alert, especially when someone's story seems too hard to ignore. Walking trick.
Accident हुआ है.
The man leaned on 2 walking sticks, limping carefully along the sidewalk, trying to look like every step was a struggle. People passing by gave him change, thinking he couldn't walk well, but nearby, cops were watching. One officer walked up, looked at the man's legs, and didn't see anything wrong. In that moment, the man stopped pretending. He grabbed the sticks, slung them over his shoulder, and ran off like nothing had ever happened. The cops didn't chase him and let him go away. Caught red-handed. On the side of the road, this man was sitting, holding a stick, pretending to be blind. People passed by, felt sad, and gave him money. Then a woman walking nearby stopped. She moved her hand in front of his face to see if he was really blind, but he gave no reaction. Then she swung her bag lightly near his head, and he flinched instantly and jumped, forgetting he was supposed to be blind. But the woman was right, and his act crumbled in seconds. Caught at station. A man once helped a woman sitting by the street who said she couldn't walk. She was always there, same spot, same story. But one day, he saw her again, walking on her own through a busy train station. She had no support and was walking normally. He watched her as she reached her old spot and sat down, pretending again. He saw her doing the same every day, but never confronted her and let her live the life she wanted. Open discussion.
Give me money and to get some eat.
Today's open discussion is about this video of Gary Thompson sitting in a wheelchair asking for change, speaking in a slow, shaky voice. He looked like someone who needed serious help, but the truth couldn't have been far from it. A news crew was doing research on him for days. When they called him by his real name, Gary stood up and walked away. Turns out he even studied how people with paralysis spoke and knew exactly how to act. He'd made thousands pretending to be a beggar. After being confronted by the crew, he just smiled and got on a bus and left the area.
I appreciate you guys busting me.
What do you think about these people? Do share your thoughts in the comments below.